Hi, everyone, and welcome to the. I'm excited. Welcome, Dr. Mark Hayden. Dr. Mark, what's going on? How are you?
Feeling great, having a great day. It's a beautiful day. Um, I guess you'd call this spring. First day of summer hadn't started. We're not in lockdowns presently in the United States. And so all that's good.
Yeah, so
Um,
I mean, we've seen a lot of different things, but we're talking the vaccine now. The
Sure,
latest news on the vaccine. That's what we really want to stick to on this podcast. Less
sure.
about everything else involved in COVID, but vaccine. Latest news
Yeah.
on the vaccine, meaning like like the effectiveness, what we've been hearing so far lately.
You have to look, the major vaccines were and still are conventional vaccines. They're intramuscular. So 99% or more of all the current vaccines are intramuscular. They're shots. So when you ask somebody around the world, did you get your vaccine? You really are asking them, did you get a vaccine shot? When you get a shot, you have systemic response. You don't necessarily have a surface mucosal response that defends the alveolus. Now, COVID grows on your alveolus, and you can transmit it even when you're asymptomatic, have no symptoms. What makes that disease difficult to stop the transmission is that it spreads from your alveolus when you're speaking, talking, making noise. And that is very different about COVID than any other virus in human history. There's never been a virus in human history that can spread from speaking while you look well. Never.
Right.
There have been in measles a virus when you're covered with little measles red bumps and you're in the active phase and coughing your brains out, that you will make an aerosol and it can hang in the air very much like COVID. But when you see somebody with measles, you know they're very, very sick. And if you have any intelligence, you avoid them at all costs. The problem with measles was you could walk through the same room 2 or 3 hours later and you could breathe it out of the air. And so it was impossible to stop the transmission of measles without having a vaccine that worked 90% effectiveness.
Right.
90% effectiveness was based on stopping it from growing in the serum, not stopping it growing in the alveolus, because measles didn't grow on the surface of the alveolus. Measles grew in the serum. So it is highly unlikely at this point that you will ever eradicate coronavirus from the face of the earth. That has been said by multiple experts. Vaccines will not eliminate coronavirus from planet Earth. That's not happening.
Okay, so let's go to the vaccine's effectiveness.
Yes.
What do you think the effectiveness of the vaccine?
Let's talk about the vaccine's effectiveness. In the last week or two, and here's what the news is. The intellectual property rights of Pfizer and Moderna were offered to be given up by the US. Now, imagine that. Pfizer and Moderna had intellectual property rights on their vaccines. They made millions, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars. And yet they got to keep their intellectual property rights. The American public lost their right to assemble for political reasons. They lost their right to go to assemble for church services and religious services and synagogues and mosques. They lost all sorts of rights. But guess what? The intellectual property rights of the big pharma, they got to keep their rights. Until recently, they are being offered to give them up. If they should have offered to give them up, they should have offered to give them up from the get-go. They didn't. They should have offered to give them up last year when, quote, war on the virus was declared. Why now? Because the basic vaccine plan has failed.
Yes.
They came out with an intramuscular vaccine plan a year ago. And it was sold as the individual countries will vaccinate everybody in their country. They will stop its spread. Well, that doesn't happen. Even if you vaccinated every man, woman, and child tomorrow, against their will, held them down and vaccinated them, there would be new mutants spreading across the border. You can't stop those mutants coming from into the United States.
Wow.
And what we also know is during the last week, we have members of the Yankees team that were fully vaccinated, 8 of them, and are positive for the virus. That means they are spreading likely a new mutant that has come into the New York area.
So you're telling me this vaccine is 100% effective only for one form of the virus?
That's the vaccine, intramuscular vaccines like Pfizer and Moderna are only effective for the specific serotype that they were designed for, and only at reducing the death, not at stopping transmission. That's right. Their effectiveness at stopping transmission only reduces, does not eliminate transmission. That means that of course, all this sounds like, well, what's going on here? Ordinary vaccines don't work that way. That's right, because coronavirus is not an ordinary disease. Consider the transmission phase as a phase when it grows on the surface like a fungus of your alveolus. So it hasn't really even entered into your body and caused a systemic response. No fever, no chills. And so if you looked at those 18 members of the Yankees that are currently positive, they're not in ICU. I don't know them personally,
Right,
but
right. So you're
good.
telling me basically the vaccine is a good form of a prophylactic, which we talked about.
It reduces death rate for those people who are already vaccinated, but they are still largely transmissible. That's right. Neil, your mom, my mom, your friends, your family, your enemies have a right to look at you and say, I don't want you to transmit a virus to me. That's reasonable. I mean, I don't want somebody to transmit a virus to me either. Okay. But here's the reality. The coronavirus is going to be transmitted through our communities for the year after year after year, and mutant after mutant after mutant, regardless of these vaccines. Now, the question is there a way to stop transmission? And there is. Inoculation through exposing your body to the live virus, to your
How many
intestinal
times?
tract.
So that's your vaccine. That again is if you go to antivirusera.com right now, you'll see it, and we're going to be making a big push. But we're waiting for the wave to come to the US so that we were right about everything. Then we could go back and say, play the tape, right? Play the tape. And then we go to CNN, we go to all these places, say, play the tape. Because when it comes out, we were talking about this months ago. If listeners that tune into the COVID-19 vaccine show on podcasting, or again from the television to the YouTube to everything. So the point I'm going to make is this: if we went your route, how many times do we have to inoculate ourselves a year to keep ourselves from not getting the virus by swallowing the virus live?
If you swallow live virus and it reaches your intestine, you have colonization. Every new form which is radically different, if you want to stop transmission on that serotype, you are likely to have to swallow that new serotype as a capsule. Now, here's how you know whether there is a test that you can design to see if the current variant is reacting to the old variant. And that is, if you expose people to live virus and they suddenly have an increase in recolonization, then their intestinal tract was not able to manage that because the surface proteins and antigenic differences were so great that it had to design a new antibody type. Your body is actually, the viruses in your community are mutating all the time.
Exactly.
Your intestinal tract is managing, it's not just managing one or two viruses. It'll manage hundreds of, maybe thousands of different bacteria and viruses this year. And it's been doing it every year of your life.
Exactly.
So, I mean,
so how many times are you exposing yourself to live virus a year?
I have, after I did inoculation, I have exposed myself to live virus at least 5 or 6 times.
But meaning
7 times.
Exposed, but meaning how many times do you have to take it? You think self-inoculate yourself?
I've done inoculation at least 5, 6, 7 times.
So is that a problem? Is that going to be, so let's just say if your vaccine goes through and it's a competitor to the intramuscular vaccines, at least in certain parts of the world, they got to bring you on Clubhouse. You got to jump on Clubhouse. We got to get some angel investors involved in other countries and get this rolling. And we have connects all over the world. The point I'm making is, if you do this, how many times do you think you have to swallow live virus a year not to get COVID?
When you say get COVID, for me not to be symptomatic, I only have to do that probably once a year.
Okay, once a year.
Yeah.
And so, okay.
Now, here's the difference. It is well known that when you have a natural infection, you are not transmissible after 10 days.
Right.
Even when you take 2-shot regimen, you're still transmissible at least 50%.
Okay, so let's break down this, because the things coming out is, well, if you have the vaccine, you don't have to wear a mask anymore. So we're talking vaccine, we're talking mask. We're not talking politically at all. The bottom line is everyone wants a fix to get back to normal, back to big concerts, back to big events, because they were willing to suffer and have this pandemic just because they're going back to the history of the Spanish flu. They want it to go the same route as the history of the Spanish flu. Okay, we had some down parts. Now we're gonna have great times. And the people who did not stop this virus from coming in, we could talk politically, but strategically, certain administrations did a better job of controlling what viruses were coming in and out of the country, or at least were more cognizant of the fact. But either way, it was a biological weapon, whatever it was. We're not going to talk about that. But the point I'm making with this this vaccine is, it's out there that you don't need to wear a mask anymore. This is very, very effective, and they're pushing this out everywhere to the American people. Your take is, what is effectiveness? So if I go ahead and my wife's stressed about this, I want to get my vaccine so I could go out and live a normal life again. What do you say to those people that say, I want to do that? Your concern is what?
Here's my concern. If you want to stop, if you want to prove that you're not transmissible, you cannot prove you're not transmissible with a vaccine that's intramuscular. So just because you have a vaccine card doesn't mean you're not transmissible. There is a way to prove that, and that is to have surface IgA measured for that particular serotype. Let's say I do an antibody test, for instance. Let's say I go over to India and I take the Indian variant of the coronavirus, and I swallow it. If I can get an IgA spike on the surface of my mucosa to defend my lungs, that spike should happen in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 days, certainly before the 9th day. If that happens before, if that happens before somebody was vaccinated and had an antibody spike, then that would mean that somebody who was inoculated with live virus would have a faster response than somebody who was being vaccinated. Those tests aren't being done. There's not a single demonstration competition between producing IgA in 2 different groups, one group being vaccinated and one group being inoculated. These tests aren't being done. You know who regulates IgA tests for saliva? It's the CDC.
Okay.
And guess what? Why is the CDC not allowing all these tests to come in cheap, low cost, should be about $1, $2 a piece. And we check out and say, hey, guess what? I just did a test today. Here's my test. I can't spread it. I have the antibody on my lung. Even if I got it into my lungs, I couldn't go back in and spread it.
Ever.
That's ever, because you would have an IgA test to prove that you're resistant to that form. That's not available. Why? Because the CDC hasn't made it available.
Where's it available?
It's available in Europe. Oh, guess what? Aren't you surprised by that? That Europe, not the CDC, would have an IgA test. Why does Europe have it? Because they're not as much of a puppet of big pharma. The only choices you're going to get in the United States are the choices that are controlled by Fauci and his friends. That's the story.
Okay.
Big pharma.
Okay. So based on that, the vaccine, just as a public service announcement, the vaccine is effective so that you do not have your symptoms decrease. But do you see the vaccine being effective 3-4 times through? So let's say it's going to be effective for 6 months, right? In 6 months, you have to go get another vaccine. Even if you've got the 2 shots, they're going to have to get a booster. Will that?
Yes. In fact, here's what you're looking at, Neil. It is almost certain that before the end of this year, they're going to be asking the American public to get a new repeat vaccine. They're a new one for a new IgA subset. That means, hey, the old Pfizer didn't work, the old Moderna, you're either going to have a booster, a new shaped spike protein, you're going to have to become sensitized to.
So you're telling me the India variant does not, the vaccine currently in the United States does not work for the new Indian variant? Pretty
much. That's it. That's right.
And that's why is that not going out? Because that's what they're saying is the Indian failed to get vaccinated and only 1% of the country got vaccinated. That's why this is where the pandemic's where it's going on in India.
Well, if you look at Seychelles, about a third of the people had both vaccine shots, and yet they still transmitted, and they were still symptomatic.
So why do they say this? So you were considering the third wave being the UK variant. Now we're looking at the Indian variant is the one we're very concerned about.
Yes.
When do you expect that to arrive in America?
Yes. So before the end of the year, you're going to see another variant come through here, and then they will be asking everybody who got the Pfizer and Moderna already, hey, sign on for your next round of shots. And I'll tell you right now, what I'm concerned with, Neil, is I want things to be stable economically. I want us to have a better economy.
Right, but you don't think it's going to happen? And
no, it's not going to happen until you remove the people who mismanage this problem from the get-go. That's yes.
Okay. So based on that, just to kind of summarize the rest of this COVID-19 vaccine, because we're really trying to stand that. If you want to go back to some real interesting stuff, you go ahead and check freedomfromaddiction.libsyn.com or just check out Freedom from Addiction.
I want you to put up the show we did on Friday.
Don't trust me. That's going to go on your website as well.
Yes.
And that's going to go up on the website as well.
Because we talked about a lot of important issues.
No, but this is for the vaccine show, which you have a really good ranking as the number one vaccine show. COVID-19 vaccine show is the number one vaccine show that goes up every week, available on Spotify, iTunes, all those places. Write a review. Tell me what you think. Check out Dr. Mark Hayden on different social media, but go ahead and do your closeout, Dr. Mark.
Here's my closeout today. Ask for honesty and candor. The truth will set you free. We need candor from the people who are in charge of health programs. Your physicians in your community are an untapped source of wisdom and understanding. Set those people free. If you believe in free enterprise, if you believe in ingenuity and innovation, that can come from the physicians in your community. Get the physicians in your community to study radvac.org, inoculation. Don't limit your possibilities to only the possibilities that make profits for big pharma. And don't spread the virus. The fastest way not to spread the virus is to do inoculation. I don't owe my protection, my immunity to Pfizer and Moderna or to any for-profit big pharma. My wife does it. My son does it. We think, we use our mind that God gave us. We're not dummies that have to follow everything that the CDC tells us. And ultimately, the reason I'm alive today and the reason that you're alive is because we have a purpose in our life. And part of our purpose is to live healthy lives, help other people live healthy lives. And let's get honesty and truth out there. Let's have dialogue and debate. The way that we function as humans is we discuss things and we argue things. And that's what really helps us get a consensus. You can't have a consensus unless you argue and debate first. There's never any argument and debate. You were told they sent all the physicians home, told them to shut up and go home. That's not progress.
Exactly. Okay.
Look, and I appreciate the chance to speak to y'all today. And I'm telling you, the next wave is going to be big. World Health Organization says there'll be more casualties in the next wave than the last one. And it's coming, and it won't be very long. That's right.
All right.
And Pfizer, Moderna did not fix it. Big Pharma didn't fix it. We told you.
You heard it first on the COVID-19 vaccine show. So go ahead and say your final closeout. Go.
Count your days. My days are numbered. I have to count my days and make my days count. And I hope you do too. Make this day matter. You have a great day, Neil, and you stay in touch.
All right, that was the COVID-19 vaccine show. You guys take care.